Hello and welcome back.
To the In Your Mind podcast. We're in my studio.
We're in the new stew.
Doesn't the audio sound so good? No reflections, no outside noise. This is crisp.
Crispy.
Yeah.
It's like a chip, like a fresh, crisp chip.
Sorry, I shouldn't have done that.
No.
That's disgusting. Anyway. Yeah. So where do we want to start?
Well, I think we should just do a little bit of like intention and reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that when any of my actions are thought about with more intention, more comes from it. And I feel more fulfilled.
Should we talk about why the need or awareness to reflect came from? Like where that came from, why it started?
Oh, I think I've been feeling the need for a bit. I think it's just more that the podcast has really changed since the beginning of when we recorded, and like I was very held onto like a structure and a very like just felt like I needed structure in order to kind of like educate and like explain like my knowledge. But more and more so I've realized that's not really the intended purpose and like what I want necessarily. It's more like I want to have a platform that shows like just like casual, that you can have casually deep conversations that are like have a lot of psychological insight and philosophy and a lot of like deep questions about the universe and all of that. But I think I find it most interesting and engaging and thought-provoking when it comes from a natural space of just like open conversation and when it arises naturally. But also with saying that, I feel like a lot of the conversations that we've been having like in the new season, like I've really enjoyed it. But then there's also this aspect of like, am I being like really intentional with the conversation before we start it? And I don't know if that necessarily is the case. Like it's more just like, okay, gonna record a podcast, and that's fine and that's good, and like sometimes some good stuff comes from it and whatever, great. But I think in order to like really kind of like ground a conversation and create an environment that brings depth and curiosity and like vulnerability, that intention and stay like being on the same page is like really important. So that's why I think it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Our last couple of episodes have been kind of weird. Like they haven't been great fluid conversations. I feel like we've been not on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's weird because I guess I feel like sometimes I get trapped in my ego, but I don't even know how that happens. Or like what even I'm trying to say. Like we get hung up on definitions a lot, and I don't know if that's just me trying to win the argument instead of having a conversation.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I definitely feel that. And I feel like I was even like reflecting on it like during like in our last conversation and just thinking like even as it's happening I'm like I don't know how we got here, but somehow like it feels like there's a lack of vulnerability in a way, because like it feels like very protectionistic in a way. But yeah, I don't really know how that comes about. I think just defending an idea and holding on to kind of what we were saying last episode is like just holding on to things a lot. And I do think, as we were talked about it last week, it dismantled a bit of it and helped. But I think, yeah, like just being on the same page and coming to this space and this conversation being like, okay, I'm ready to be vulnerable, open, and reach like depths that might be not feel comfortable in a moment if someone's saying something that's slightly disagreeing. Like if you're saying something at the beginning, not jumping the gun and being like, I disagree. Like just being like, okay, where are they actually coming from? Just like a level of like ease maybe.
And maybe the lack of structure in the episodes has kind of aggravated it, perhaps. Like, if we're running out of things to say, maybe I just argue about the point because there's no logical forward step to take it. I don't know. Like a combination of that and the ego thing.
Yeah. I think it's important then to have like be on the same path of like broad ideas that we want to discuss, because then we can both know the coverage of an episode. Talk about that.
Yeah, and what we're trying to communicate is like a duo rather than two individuals. Yeah.
Well, what we were kind of discussing for this episode, if you agree and want to take it this way, is your studio, and also just like environments and how like a new changed environment, like what that's brought.
Yeah.
How do you think this space that we're in right now has changed the sessions that you have with the people that come here?
That's crazy that I've never really thought about that specifically before. I think it does feel vulnerable and very intimate because it's such a small space. Like there's not much room to run.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Which is really interesting. It's not something that I've really thought about because I have been writing more realer and realer music since I've come in here, which is really interesting. And I think the sessions I've had with artists have reflected that. Like, I think I am good at that as a person, but I never really had a space that reflected that, I suppose, which is interesting. Like, having this space, have it being so small and secluded.
Can you describe it for, like, listeners?
Yeah, so,
if
like...
they can't see it, if they're not watching the video.
We're in a warehouse.
Yeah.
Like a shared creative woodworking, clay making, florist, knife making warehouse. But we're in the back in what used to be part of the kitchen, but we've built a wall separating us from the kitchen. So we're like the door that comes into the kitchen, and then we've got another door that comes into the studio from the kitchen because it was like attached. So it's very separate and insulated from the outside world. Like we're at least a wall deep on either side out of outside, which is something I've never thought about either too, which is crazy. So we're very separated from the world space-wise. We're in like a vacuum. And yeah, there's not really any windows.
There's one window.
There's one window that goes out into the outside warehouse, but there's a curtain over it anyway, so like... Yeah.
But then inside, like, there's sound panels, nice lighting, a nice carpet that I didn't used to like, but I actually do think that it fits the vibe. Brendan's face was shocked.
Well, because like now I'm sitting here, I'm not sure if it does suit the room. Because the top, everything but the carpet is like grey monotone, but also earthy.
Yeah.
Kind of
like beachy.
And the red, blue and white rug doesn't really reflect that, but it's interesting. Maybe a brown rug.
I think it just looks very like studio. Like it looks creative because it's got like paint splatters.
Interesting.
It's more like if it didn't have that, it might feel more like a home without the sound panels.
Yeah, for real. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's a cool vibe, and it's cool that like this space is just yours. Like the last place that we were recording our podcasts from was the podcast room, the study, and the studio. And so it had a lot more. It was a bit bigger, but had more utilities. And I think also just having a space where you come here and you purely are like, it's just dedicated to you.
And one specific activity.
Yeah.
Like in that old room, we'd do so many different things. It wasn't really optimized for any of them.
Yeah.
Like for working at our desks, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
But it was it wasn't quite big enough for everything. Like the podcast setup we had was kind of a weird fit, and we would sit up next to each other on two office chairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. The the place that we're in now is pretty good because we're just on a couch and there's a big room. So, yeah.
Well, we've been doing some of the podcasts inside and then some of them outdoor.
Oh, true, yeah.
Too, which I think brings different vibes. We're talking about this, so like when we do podcasts inside and on the couch, it feels a bit more cozy, casual, and it's better for conversations of warmth, I feel.
They're kind of just like, kind of more like us, and not so much about the subject matter.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the outdoor is nice because you feel like a part of the outdoor environment. But then it's also feels a little bit more structured because you got the big table. So it feels a little bit more professional. Like I sit up straighter. Like it's a kind of a bit of a different thing. But it definitely does affect the conversations that we have and the way that I feel like I act in them too.
Yeah, that's interesting. Which episodes do you prefer? Do you have a preference?
I think as you said, like before we started this episode, you were saying like I like to do them in different settings. And I think that's kind of what I'm enjoying. Just like the change. And I don't think one is necessarily better than the other. And I honestly don't feel like we've got enough enough to reflect on and be like, what, this is better. Like I don't feel like I can really do that right yet. But I do really like the variety because it brings different stimulation and energies. What's your intention? Would you say that it's quite similar to like what I've stated, or do you think that like you come into the space with intention?
Well, it's evolved. It's evolved for me. Like in the beginning, I wasn't really even on the episodes in the beginning. I was just there to try and help you.
Yeah. Ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we kind of did guests for a while. And I feel like in the start of that, I was the third wheel. And then by the end of the guests, I was just the extra question firer, kind of.
I thought you were pretty integral.
You reckon?
Yeah.
And then since we've moved here, well, we kind of had a more duo stage, which I think is where our best episodes have been. Would you agree?
What do you mean duo stage? Like what episodes can you think of?
Like almost all the episodes since we've done our last guest episode. Like the ones up until recently. Like where we've recently started the spontaneous thing, we just started talking about what was interesting to us. I think those were our best episodes. And I think that was because my intention behind it was just, let's have an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
But now we've kind of lost track a bit, and I feel like the balance has shifted in some way. And I think now I want to redefine my intention to be like, I would just record this podcast as like a log for me to watch in the future, or my family to watch it in the future. Like if my kids want to see me when I'm 25 before they were born, that would be cool. And I really only just thought about that aspect of it, like before we press the record.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. And I think that would bring the truest form of me out, which would be better for everyone else, I think so. Yeah, just change the audience, you know?
Yeah, in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I just want it to be like a safe, comfortable space where we talk about real stuff, like real deep stuff that's like has meaning to us, that has like, yeah, it's not just like, oh, how's your coffee? Yeah, good. Like it's like, I kind of want to ground it in like, yeah, deeper meaning.
It's my genuine curiosity.
Yeah. But I think like I was thinking about the conversations just in my life where I get really excited, and like that's what I want in here. Like the conversations that I get is when we talk about like some of like my passions, like
What?
just trying to think, like experiencing things that are unknown or really hard to define by science, or kind of just on the cutting edge where like with consciousness and like learning about that and where we're at and kind of like theorizing about that. Like that is when I'm feeling like my body is vibrating because I'm like so excited.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking about stuff that has like existence, like meaning of life, like that.
It has energy in and of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that charges me up.
Yeah.
And just speaking about possibilities, because I just feel like it's so hard to have like a conversation about that with just the typical person, because like we don't just casually talk about that stuff in society.
Yeah.
Because it's scary. Because it's such a vulnerable thing to do. And that we think that we should have some sort of answer for it. Like, I think a lot of the time when I do have conversations with people, it's more like, I don't know. But it's not like, oh, I don't know, let's just talk about it. Let's talk about possibilities. It's like, I don't know. And that's really scary. Let's step away from it rather than going into it. And the people that I'm trying to surround my life with is the people who like theorizing about it and questioning it, and that it also excites them too. Like, that's like life passion, honestly.
It would be crazy if we like grew a community of people like that. That would be wild.
But also, I think that like, I don't know if this is just me coming from like such like a, like I'm just projecting my own individuality onto like the rest of humanity, which I could totally be doing right now. But I'm going to say it. Like, I feel like, don't we all want to have those conversations?
Yeah.
It's just like...
Well, those conversations are what connection is.
Yeah.
Like, you don't connect over small talk. You just kind of have it to be polite when you don't either have the resources to do it or you just don't align in enough ways.
But I also think it's a level of vulnerability and comfortability in the uncertain, because to talk about things that we can't know for sure or is all very speculatory, it requires maybe a sense of detachment in a way from like, I don't know how I'm trying to explain this. It just requires being vulnerable, I think. And I think that's can be really uncomfortable if it's not something we're in practice of, and or if it's not what we've grown up in an environment that has been like allowed to do that, or like if we've been surrounded by other people that kind of shut it down, then that would be our natural reaction. But I think it's been cool on like in my life so far that is just getting like broader and broader, and the comfortability and the levels of vulnerability that I can have within more and more people, if I can just like take like honestly like a bit of a leap of faith and just say something that might be kind of scary but true, and how I'm like thinking, it can like, it's kind of like an arm extension of like, here, I'm gonna be vulnerable, like take it or leave it kind of thing, like not expecting anything, but also like just putting it out there, because if it's rejected or if it's accepted, like it's better off just showing yourself that you can say what, like you can do what you want.
Yeah.
And then, but most of the time that I do say something that has like a level of uncertainty or curiosity about like the meaning of life to just anyone, most of the time I get such interesting answers and such like fulfilling, incredible conversations, or just a sense of connection, as you said, like just like, okay, like that was just a couple words, but like that was so much meaning, and I feel like, yeah, positive about that. Yeah. What's the number one thing that makes you like internally like vibrate of excitement? Like, does that make sense? Like, you just getting like, you just get so hyped, like you can't even like contain yourself. You're just like, whoa, like, yeah.
When I make a crazy song.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't sit still.
Yeah.
Yeah. And more generally, I think it is possibilities as well. And like when you see massive visions for what's possible, that's what like excites me, because you literally see it, and it just like it opens up your world, and it's crazy that you can do that just with a conversation with someone.
Yeah, totally.
Like you just project sound waves into the air, travels to their brain, they decode it and assign meanings to vibrations in the air.
Like, are you talking just about language or music or both?
Yeah, music as well.
Yeah.
I was really only talking about how conversations can do it. But yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. I do know what you mean with like that visions and possibilities and connections from one conversation of like another person usually having some sort of similar experience to you, but then like showing you like an alternate path, or like things that you haven't thought about before, or things that you've thought about but just in a new way, and then your whole vision of something or your whole idea or concept of something like expands. Possibility. Yeah. And I think that's probably what ties it back to like me and like just theorizing on life is just new possibilities.
Yeah. That's good.
Or finding connection or bonding when you didn't know it was going to happen. Or just reaching another level of like depth with someone and you're like, wow, cool. Like, that's really cool.
Do you think there's a limit to how much you can know someone?
Yeah, you can only know what they show you or tell you, or how much they are vulnerable.
So you think there's a limit to that?
Yeah, there's a limit to how much we can know about ourselves.
Yeah, but is that the same thing? Like, if they don't know it about themselves, does that mean it even exists?
What do you mean?
Like, are they missing it? If they don't know something about themselves, they haven't observed it, so it doesn't exist. Do you know what I mean?
No. Can you explain like how this relates, or where this is coming from more broadly?
We were talking about connection.
Yeah.
With people.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, like, is there a limit to that? Because connection is based off vulnerability and how much you know the other person. Is there a limit to how much you can know someone else?
You can only know themselves how much they know themselves.
But if they're giving you all of what they have.
But they don't know all of what they have. Like, we never know fully everything about ourselves because there's so many, like, we have.
But you can knowingly give all you know you have.
Maybe.
Well, if that was the case, no one can ever tell the truth.
I'm confused.
Well, if what you're saying is they don't know everything about themselves. So
can
how
we
can
relate
you
this back to us? Because then I can understand this.
Like
better.
me and you.
Yeah, like put this in a way that we can.
Like, I guess a really basic example would be like, if I ate a piece of cake and you have a level of connection with me that has established a sense of trust because you see what I have shown you and that has turned out to be true. But if there's things about me that I don't know about and they come to you outside of my awareness, does that make you lose trust in me? Because I didn't know it was there.
Yeah. I
But
think
you
that's
found
just assessing whether you think the person is authentic or not, and is authentically showing them yourselves. And if you truly believe that they're authentically showing you everything that they know about themselves, then I think it would be fine.
So then there is no limit to your sense of connection with someone else.
I find it just hard to comprehend in those words. Can I state how I think I understand it, and then you correct me?
Okay.
Where it's not. So if I'm telling you and showing you everything I know about myself, and when you ask, that's what I'm doing. I'm just being authentic. I don't know, because that's basically actually asking a deeper question of like, can we be consciously aware of ourselves and our every move and our every action? Like, isn't that what it's kind of asking? Can we actually be aware?
It's like an off-shooting sub-question, yeah.
I think that's the thing, and I don't have an answer for that. I feel like that's an unstable question because, like, kind of what I'm referring to here is like, can you be like basically like a third person? Can you view yourself and your scenarios from like a third like not in like the Kira self, but like more objectively? Can you be conscious of your decisions and maintain a level of control over like everything.
Yeah.
And with meditation and with insights, and we can like catch ourselves going, oh, I was just in a thought, like that kind of stuff is what I'm referring to. But I don't know if we can actually do that 24/7 as humans. Like I think like, I don't know, I've just never seen it.
Does that limit the amount of connection you can have with someone then?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're not catching yourself and conscious, then you can't be as deeply connected. Like it limits.
But you're always like that forever.
Connection. What do you mean?
Like there's always going to be things that you're not going to catch.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. But some people say that you can live fully conscious, which would mean that
I don't think a human can. Like maybe some subspecies of human with an AI chip in their brain might be able to.
Yeah.
But not in our primitive state. I have doubts.
Yeah. I think we get too caught in our...
Well, I think our architecture is just not built for that kind of bandwidth.
Yeah, true.
Like, we need bigger brains, basically, in order to intake all of that information at once.
Or just less stimulation.
And process it all, you know?
Yeah, or just like, but like, in a world where we didn't have as much stimulation and as much things and as much chopping and changing, maybe it's easier to remain more conscious. If you're in a forest by yourself, I don't know, like I think like...
No, that's true, yeah.
You know, I think a lot of the time, because I just think about, we have so much to respond to within our environment that we get lost in our thoughts because
it
there's
makes
just so
us
much
less
going on.
conscious.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. There's just more going on, so there's more input. So it's harder to, as you say, like, with the bandwidth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like clogging up your bandwidth with shit. Literally. That is crazy.
Just a lot of stimulation in a fast-paced world.
It's just like choking out the growth of your consciousness, quite literally.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. I need to get off social media.
Well, it's just the more you input, I think it's a pretty just simple thing, like the more you input into your brain.
Yeah, 100%, for sure.
The harder it is to understand what you're doing or what the main objective is.
Or just to know
control.
what to focus on.
Yeah.
Like, I think being conscious is just having control of your attention.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's big. That's big. We could just end it there, bro. We just changed people's lives. For real. That's wild. See, those are the type of conversations we're here for.
Yeah. But I also think that's like I feel like you've thought about that before, surely. Like,
yeah, I've written about it as well.
Yeah.
But just
in a different
from
context.
that direction, in that perspective is quite
cool.
profound.
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 Frowned upon.
Stupid people will frown on that, I reckon. You'll be like, man, what the fuck? Me. Mate, you're too dumb to understand. It's alright.
Jeez,
he'll get there one day.
Is that a conscious thing that you're saying right now?
Yeah. Because, like, I don't have any animosity towards people that hate or troll. They're just projecting their own internal state outwards.
But I think language of coming is coming with a level of hostility.
Yeah, because they're coming with hostility.
But do you need to reciprocate with that hostility?
I'm not hostile in my... It might sound hostile, but genuinely, my intention... I'm not evoked emotionally.
Yeah. But I do think even using, language... Using language comes with it underlying meanings, even if... even what I feel, right? You might not feel it. But by saying, that language is, is little hostile, maybe.
It might upset some people. Sure. Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying that, I do really think that the language that we speak and what we choose to say, no matter where we're coming from, holds with it, meaning. Because it is attached to all of our definitions and what we've heard about it before and how we've heard about it. And, there's a lot that comes with every word that we speak. Yeah.
So what did I say that you thought I shouldn't say?
Well, I just question whether, I don't know. And I definitely do it as well when I like speak about it as a joke and be like, these people, meh, meh, meh. There is something there. Like, it's not just nothing, you know, there's meaning in that.
Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't say it.
Yeah. But what's the meaning?
There is frustration that there's people out there who are so blind by their own ignorance. And they're casting judgment on me when they don't have any idea what's behind everything. Do you know what I mean?
Can you explain?
Like someone commenting some shit on TikTok is completely ignorant to the person behind the content or what they're trying to do or the message or anything. Because anyone who is a normal person, like a happy person, doesn't comment that stuff. And I get frustrated because I guess there's some part of me that I see in them. And also like the pain that it makes me feel knowing someone is in that state and that I have been or could be in that state as well. And I guess it's just like a knee-jerk reaction to like snap them or me out of it. I don't know who it's aimed at necessarily. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But it's just interesting then because like I feel like you should explain that by saying like, because making like a negative comment, it makes sense when you explain it, because you could be coming from so many different angles that it's hard to know why you said that. You know what I mean? And I think
I don't think so.
well, I had no idea where you were coming from. Like a lot of what I hear from it is like maybe just like frowning upon it. But I'm like, why?
Why am I frowning upon someone clowning on people on social media?
Yeah.
Because it's antisocial behaviour.
And maybe like all I need to do then is ask why, if that matters really to me, and why you're saying it.
I do get it though, like where you're coming from. It's just hard for me to predict that before I say things. Because then I'm like, what's this person going to think about what I'm saying? Or how am I supposed to say this so I don't offend? Or like maybe someone will take this the wrong way.
Right.
Like I just can't be fucked walking on eggshells.
I guess I'm just way more programmed for that. Like I'm just like...
But you also care. Like I've gotten to the point where I'm like...
I do care.
I don't care if it hurts your feelings because like you'll be right.
But then why say it?
Because I believe it. It's the truth.
But then you're just projecting an emotional state onto others.
But it's not an emotional state that I'm not deliberately letting people see. Like it's not any manipulation. It's like, this annoys me. I'm going to say that this annoys me.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to suppress that because it annoys me for a reason.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's... Yeah.
I think just at the end of the day, like we obviously have our unique differences and there's valid reasons for you saying that. And there's valid reasons for me not to, like, because we both come at it through a different lens and have very different, like, upbringings as well.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. And if we didn't have people that were all different, then, like, what would we look like, you know? It'd be boring. And this conversation would be interesting.
But that's also, like, there's also the other side of that, which is, like, I should also be more watchful of what I do say because it's not always the truth. And I think that's kind of what you're pointing at. Like, the emotionality that comes through is just saying things because I'm emotional and not because they're true.
Yeah, and it's just hard to distinguish it.
No, that's fair.
So you can't tell authentically where you're coming from sometimes, maybe.
How would you distinguish that then? Or how would I distinguish that for other people?
Saying where it's coming from as soon as you say it. Like if you're saying something that is...
But how do I
has an emotional
how do
reaction.
I know when to clarify why I'm saying something?
Well, it's funny because within me, I can feel it. Like, it's like, oh, I said something
right,
heated. Like, in whatever emotion, like just, it has a lot of emotion backing because I can feel it.
Yeah, okay.
And there, I'm going to explain it.
So
like
if I feel emotion when I'm saying it, I should clarify.
Explain the emotion. I think it creates more vulnerability. Like even now, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Like I understand.
Yeah,
like,
and you're with it. You're like,
yeah,
yeah,
like, okay.
that's
Yeah.
yeah.
But I
That's so
think just
true.
explaining it to people is like so helpful. It's helpful for me. Yeah.
That is really tough to tell the truth too, though. When you are being emotional and you're not saying.
I don't think so. I think like speaking it is a different thing.
What do you mean?
Like what do you mean that it's hard?
Like when you've said some emotional stuff, and it's not true. Like it was some fiery stuff, but you said it because you were emotional and you were frustrated or angry or upset, and you didn't actually mean what you said, or there wasn't good intention behind it.
I think
it's hard to own that. Yeah,
but I think owning that is.
It's almost
so
more brownie
good.
points than telling the truth when you had good
100%.
intentions.
If someone says,
Fuck,
"Oh damn, I shouldn't
scary
say that,"
though.
that is so much self-confidence and like so much like.
Yeah,
it's
that's
and you're
big
showing
balls.
like whenever anyone else does that, or like I'm like, wow, okay, I can do that, and it's almost like shows yourself that like that's a thing that can happen and that you can do, and you can feel how powerful it is, even if you're not the one doing it.
I guess I've never had it.
Have you never?
I don't think I've ever received it.
Right.
That's interesting. Like, not growing up, I feel like you're good at doing it, but I don't take it on because I didn't get it a lot earlier. Maybe in like my first relationships or even when I was a kid or something. That is really.
I don't think it's something that we all are taught. Like, yes, we're taught, like, just tell the truth, be honest, it's the best way to be. But in reality...
You don't talk about why and what the mechanisms, what can go wrong if you're not being truthful.
I think it's more,
or owning your shit, yeah.
It's more like, these are the punishment if you don't say the truth. And it's coming from a place of, I'm sorry that I, like just saying, like, I was with my sister and I did something bad, and my mum tells me, okay, you have to go and apologize and say that you're sorry, or you have to go and you have to say that you're sorry, you made a mistake. And because it's framed in the way of like almost like guilt and shame, it's not something that is empowering. It's something that is
you're not doing it to better the relationship, you're just doing it to save face when you're not even really.
It's kind of like I just remember feeling shame.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you're a kid and you do something wrong and you're like, I'm sorry. But you can't even look at them and you're like, oh, I'm sorry that I did this.
Yeah.
But it didn't ever make me feel good. It just made me feel sad about myself, and then like, what have I done? Shame rather than
this
like,
only
empowering.
happened after the truth has been out, like the one you were trying to hide has been exposed.
What do you mean?
Well, I can't say for you, but that has been my experience. Like the only feedback I've gotten when I've told the truth is after I've told it after a lie.
Yeah, after a lie, or you've done something knowingly harmful or hurtful or like morally wrong.
So narcissistic. Holy shit.
What sounds narcissistic?
Lying and only telling the truth once your lie has been caught. That's wild. I don't think I'm actually like to that degree, but growing up I did it a fair bit.
I think that's just what we do as kids in a way. Like, I think
it's a very okay, this is where I'm holding my tongue because I'm not sure if it's true.
Yeah.
But I think it's I think it's a masculine thing. I was going to say I think it's a boy thing, but I think it's a masculine thing. Like...
What?
I don't know what exactly it is. It's like testing social relationships. And early puberty for boys, I feel like they get kind of narcissistic because the testosterone or the hormones going on kind of pushes them in that direction.
Yeah.
And even like little boys. And I think they can be seen as like little rats. Yeah. And I'm sure girls have their version of this too, but and they just have these spells of telling more lies to see if they can get away with it.
Yeah, just
Or
finding
for
the
any other
boundary and the
reason.
consequences and
Yeah.
just working.
Yeah, exactly. Finding the boundaries.
Mm.
Yeah. I should have said that to begin with. My fucking rant
got
was a
you.
bit unhinged.
Nah,
Yeah.
sweet.
You gotta zoom in on your face.
No. Oh, that was a stank.
Not in here, bro. No.
I actually need to go pee though.
Okay.
But I feel like we should just I should just finish this point and wrap it up
Okay.
instead. But we were talking about, yeah. But so I think with like the telling the truth thing is like doing it the best, like the easiest way for me to do it is it feels like it's a thing that you get into practice of and you get out of practice of. Like it feels like a practice.
For sure.
Because when I don't do it, it's like stacks up against me and I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go.
It's like discipline.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like a bit of a muscle. And that like it works in increments. Like if you like say something slightly untrue, even if it doesn't matter, it doesn't have any consequences, but even stating it out loud to another person, being like, oh, I didn't mean that. Like, I don't know why I said that. Like saying it for something that's like little shows you can feel that emotion when that you can feel that inside you and that energy. And when you express that, you're like, wow, okay, that was good. It's good to say. It's good to admit. Or it's good just to like switch the conversation because it feels bad when you go along with a lie. Like, doesn't feel good.
Yeah, or you hold in the truth.
You're holding in the truth and doesn't feel good. Once you let that out and you confirm, like you go, oh, I don't know why I said that, sorry.
Will that be a fire song lyric? The truth burnt a hole in my chest. That is wild. That's crazy. Someone write that down. So
lying while the truth burns. Yeah. Like, just to give it like context.
I felt the pain in my stomach, so I told a lie, but really it was the truth burning all inside. Shit, man. Clip that.
Yeah. Well, I think we should wrap it up. I think it's been a good chat. Nice to...
I kind of feel like I derailed it a lot at random points with my rants and gibberish.
Nah.
You don't think so?
I think that's all well and good, honestly.
All well and good.
All well and good.
I hope so.
And I think, like, I felt the vibes.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. It felt real. It felt authentic. And it felt deep. It felt like us. And I hope you guys felt that too.
Yeah. This is good.
Yeah.
You kind of like rediscover yourself over and over again.
Mm.
And it feels nice when you find your way back and you don't even know you were lost. That sounds so fucking cliche. End this episode.
Thanks for listening, guys. Have a good day or night. Bye.
Peace.